Hello and welcome to Crate Expectations. I'm Tom Deadhead Kennedy, joined by Matt Supernova Carvalho, Chris Motor City Palumbo, and Dan Raider Lozier. Today we're bringing you the first of a new exploration of our musical taste through the classic book, 1001 Albums to Hear Before You Die. They won't always be obvious choices, but we hope you'll join us in celebrating the spirit of the book and exploring some new music. Dan, pretty excited for this one. It's something we've been talking about for a while. I always dip in and out of this book when I'm looking for something new to listen to, or even when I'm listening to something that I've heard 100 times. I'll just have a flip through the book, have a bit of a read, what they have to say about the album. What have you got to share for us in this first 1001 Albums theme?
Yeah, so first I actually just want to mention the book. This book has never really been on my radar in the past. It just seems like 1001 albums to listen to before you die just seems like such a daunting task. But actually, when you start diving into the book, you start realizing how much of that music you've seen, I've heard throughout all this time that you spent listening to music, right? So
Yeah.
And I actually have to give the authors of that book some kudos to a very well curated list, and also some respect on delivering multiple editions of this book as well to make sure that they re-update it as new music comes out.
I actually did the math. If you assume the average album is 40 minutes, give or take,
Yeah,
it would take
that's good.
28 days straight to listen to every album in the book.
It's not bad.
Wow. Okay.
Like listening 24 hours a day.
Like listening 24 hours a day.
That'd be a really cool
28 days.
That'd be a really cool charity event where you could like switch it off, and the goal would be to get through the beginning to the end of the book as like a team of people. And people
just stay awake the whole time and end with all the psychedelic rock.
Right? You'll just be tripping out. Yeah, I like how you said. Yeah, I like how you said daunting, Dan, because like again, this book was not on my radar either, and I was flipping through and I was like, at the first couple pages, or not even pages, I was just on the website going through it, and I was like, I don't know any of this.
It's a lot.
Yeah, I was like, oh my God, I don't know. What is wrong with me? What do I? Yeah. And then all of a sudden I hit like a couple sections, and I was like, oh, I know all these. And then I hit like, oh, I know all these. And then I got to like the end, and I was like, oh my God, I forgot about that album. Like one I'm probably going to mention later is like the Vines were on there, and I was like,
yeah,
dude, that album is amazing, and I haven't listened to that in like 5 or 6 years. I was like, I got to get myself a copy now. So yeah, it's daunting, but also it was like exciting to flip through. So,
for sure.
Great topic.
How many times has this thing been updated?
I think there's like 6 or 7 editions, isn't there?
Yeah, and they're doing it more. I think they're doing it more frequently now.
Oh, I guess you have to.
You got to keep it current, right? Like Matt, I know your version doesn't have kind of 2010s onwards. Whereas mine does.
It ends at 2006. I think the last album on it is "Get Behind Me, Satan" by White Stripes.
Wow. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So whereas mine's a bit more current.
So how do they? So they have to get rid of albums.
Yeah.
How do you do? Like, how do you do that? Because I was going through that list. Like, how do you do that?
I find there are some obscure picks that I've definitely never heard of ever.
Yeah,
totally.
I'd say like 75% of it. Like, yeah, okay, I know this album. I know this. Maybe I haven't. Maybe I haven't listened to it, but at least I know.
You know of it.
Yeah.
And there would be ones on there where it would almost be undisputable. You'd be like, 100%. That's an essential to listen to.
You need to have that in your collection. Yeah.
There would be others where you're like, I understand why it's on the list, but it's not really my thing. Maybe there's others that you would dispute. Hey, maybe at the end of this year we do a hot take where we all choose one that just we don't think should be on the list.
Oh,
like
that
Joshua Tree. Great idea.
Yeah. Okay.
Like Joshua Tree needs to be removed from that.
Dan, it was almost on my. It was almost going to be one of my choices.
It was in consideration for me as well.
Oh man.
Anyway, let's not get back. That's a whole thing. Let's not get back into it.
It's going to start an argument.
But yeah, like it's funny. It's funny, you know, when I was going through the list, it's a website that does a great job of actually having like a full checklist that you can check off, and then it'll summarize what you have.
Yeah.
Cool.
But like you, Chris, like you flip through the book, it's like, yeah, I've listened to a lot of this stuff. You know, at least over half of it, I've definitely listened to. But like I was surprised to see that I own like 50 of the albums in the book.
Yeah.
I'm curious,
right? Too.
I need to go through. I haven't gone through and looked. I'm curious to see if I have any.
Most of my collection is from the 70s.
Yeah.
So
Like most of the stuff that I have is 70s. Anyway, Dan.
I digress. Let's get into my pick. So
what do you got?
I think this one is kind of a low key pick. I don't think a lot of people know about this. I didn't even know about these guys until last summer. I was visiting my cousin Matt on Manitoulin Island. I've talked about Matt the guitar maker quite a bit. And there's a little antique store in Gore Bay in the town where he lives, next to the town that he lives. And there's always records there, right? And I've flipped through, and it's a lot of junk. It's a lot of stuff that you'll find at antique shops.
Yeah.
Goodwill and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And as we're flipping through, Matt's like, "You need to buy this." And I'm like, "What?" I'm like, "What is it?" He's like, "Dude, these are like the OG punks. Like, just buy it. Just don't hesitate. Just get it."
Have you said what it is yet?
No, I haven't said what it is yet.
Oh,
so now's your chance to guess.
I buy the record. I bring it back to his place. Lo and behold, I drive home. The daunting 6.5-hour drive from Manitoulin. I forgot my record there. I also found Exodus. I also found Exodus by Bob Marley.
Oh, nice. That's
so they just sat in the guest room. Go back over the New Year's break. We always usually go over New Year's there, and I finally picked it up again. So I didn't listen to this album until the new year.
Oh, nice.
So the album is Paul Revere and the Raiders featuring the Kicks, Midnight Ride. This is considered to be like proto-punk, for the listeners. Chris and I are about to get into what proto-punk is and whether or not this genre should stick or not. But to me, this is like, it's early rock and roll, pop rock, garage rock.
Yeah.
Yes.
It hits on a lot of different genres.
Psych.
It's very psychedelic.
Yeah.
It's very the Kinks. The pop rock is almost like the Monkees.
Yep.
I find it's a little early psychedelic rock.
Yes.
But as
really
soon
influenced the Who.
Yeah. As soon as I put this record
even hear like
on,
the Stones, like
there's definitely a lot of Stones in there too. But as soon as I put this album on, it was like, holy crap, this thing slaps from start to finish. It is so good. Every song on it is an instant classic. So when I went through the book and I saw this on there, I was like, I have to make this a pick because I don't think enough people know about it. And I think unless you're in that kind of diehard punk space, people who've dove into the early influence of punk and that kind of genre will know about this. Like my cousin, who's a huge punk head. That's why I'm pretty sure that's why he knows about these guys. But this to me is like it's on constant rotation at home right now. It's one of those albums I'm constantly pulling back off the shelf.
The thing that struck me, I didn't necessarily know that I knew this, but as soon as I put it on, I knew it. I'd listened to it before, and it's like they've got some really iconic riffs and songs.
Oh yeah, big time.
The riffs is what caught me. I was listening and I was like, you can hear those punk riffs in it. You can hear Iggy Pop.
Yeah.
You can hear you can even hear like almost the pop punk scene of the early 2000s in it. But the amps aren't turned up, right?
Yeah, arguing against yourself here.
No,
Chris,
I'm not. I'm not because but this was an album I never, like when Dan dropped this in the chat, I was like, I've never heard of this band. I went and listened to the album front to back and was like, I never once heard any of these songs before. It was like one of those things that I just like, again, I'm learning so much about myself and how much music I like is out there and how much you're missing.
There's the one song on the album that I recognize, which is I'm Not Your Stepping Stone.
That's a great tune.
Which was, like, I think it was one of the bigger songs on their album, on this album for them.
Yeah.
But it was a huge The Monkees hit.
Oh.
Yeah.
The Monkees covered that song, and it's on their greatest hits album.
Okay.
Oh, shit.
Do you know what? Yeah.
The Sex Pistols have covered these guys as well.
Well, yeah. So, like, which is, probably why I'm hearing, like, I would say they influenced the Sex Pistols, but it's just, like, the covering. I'm sure Iggy Pop at some point has covered one of these songs as well, which is kind of makes it cool. Also, I would like to say, I thought they were, when I first heard them, I thought they were British right away. And I had to go looking.
Yeah,
I was
they're
like,
American, yeah.
They're American. I was like,
Paul Revere,
interesting. Interesting.
So
Didn't see that coming.
So let's talk about proto-punk.
Why?
Well, I actually wanted to talk. I wanted to talk a little bit more about the album to segue into this proto-punk genre.
Let's talk about the album.
So to me, I mean, like to jump off of what Chris said, right, with the riffs, I find that that's kind of what you're hearing as like an early influence to punk music. But to me, I think like the biggest telltale is like the quick guitar melodies, but also the bass tones. Yeah, all I really need is you. It's such an interesting song, and when they get into the chorus, and you hear that really heavy, distorted bass in the background, to me, it's like, oh, like I'm starting to hear a lot of the early punk influences.
There's one
sort
track
of bleed into that genre.
There's one track, like 2/3 of the way through the album. I can't recall its name right now, but it's got like a full-on punk drum beat.
Yes.
Like the tempo picks up, and it's that hi-hat snare, and you're like, holy moly, this is punk.
It might be.
This is punk before punk.
Crap. Tom. So I remember, and I made a note. I think it's Melody for an Unknown Girl, but don't quote me on that because I remember.
No, that one's actually mellow.
Is it Get It On?
That one's like Paul Revere rocked up to the studio to record, and they had the music ready, and they were like, Paul, where are the lyrics? And he's like, I don't have the words.
Yeah, but the writing, I think the beauty of that, I love that song so much. It's such a beautiful melody. It's that the words on the song are just so perfect.
Yeah.
Sometimes you have a feeling, and
but
you don't know how to express yourself.
I feel like that's been
you
used in a
have the
movie or
words.
something. It seems very iconic, like it's
sure.
buried somewhere deep in the recess of my brain.
Yeah. Maybe that's why Dan, I know exactly what you're talking about. It's gonna annoy me, but yes.
So, Dan, you was talking about how this has got those early punk vibes, and I feel like there's a discussion to be had about when a genre becomes a genre.
Well, yeah, I mean, these guys weren't called punk on day one, right?
Because punk didn't exist.
Yeah.
Punk didn't exist, exactly. Like these guys got pulled into British invasion and like early American rock and roll, garage rock, right? And then it wasn't until you saw that punk music come out in the mid 70s that they were like,
then you can trace it back.
Yeah, we're tracing it back to Paul Revere.
Oh, there's some influence
which
here.
was
There's
the
some,
prototype for punk music.
This might even be proto punk, because like if the Stooges, I know this is triggering Chris, but like if the Stooges are proto punk, then are these guys proto punk because their sound influenced the Stooges?
Like, so I'm just. Then why don't we just call it like they're like the grandfathers of punk? If we like,
because it's
they're the prototype of punk.
But I just I don't know. I struggle with it. It's just punk then.
No, it's not. Well, it's not because
punk. It's not.
But it's
These guys are dressing up as like American revolutionaries. They weren't.
Yeah, which is like. But what is punk then?
Punk is a culture.
Well, then
right?
Punk is just going against the like the mainstream.
But your issue with labeling a genre is that it's retrospective, right? But all labeling is retrospective. Like no one just rocked up and went, "This is punk," and then made a punk album.
Yeah,
they did something that was different to rock.
Yeah,
that was similar to proto-punk. Like, right, there was rock, and then a branch stems off, and it's a bit different to rock, a bit edgier, a bit faster, a bit louder, a bit more distorted. And then someone loves that, and they go, and then another branch grows out, and that's punk. And then you trace that back to its roots, which is rock or blues.
Yeah,
right. Everything comes from somewhere, but you got to give it a label, otherwise it's all just rock.
Yeah, and. I don't know, and I was saying this earlier. I don't know why it's the proto-punk that's triggering me the
most. Is it just the word proto?
It might be, and because I don't know if this is a prototype. I don't think it's a prototype. I think it's its own thing. So it needs maybe the issue is, and I was trying to say this in the chat. I don't think I have like a good argument. I don't think I'm set.
What
in
do
my
you
argument.
call it though? Like I know what you're saying.
I know
because you've got like
that's
rock
why I just want to call it
punk here, and it's in the middle.
Yes, so I just want to call it like the beginning. Like maybe it's the word prototype because I don't think this is a prototype. I think this is punk. right? Like they're set. You
It's
hear
not
the punk in it,
music though. It's not.
but you're
punk
hearing
music.
like you're hearing the roots of punk. Then call it like I don't know.
Rouge punk.
Root punk.
Yeah, but it's
I
like-
get what
it's
you're saying.
also
It's
like-
garage
you know,
punk or
I feel
like,
like,
you've-
I feel
when-
like proto sounds better than
I
Rouge
don't
punk.
I don't know why the prototype, because it's, to me, a prototype is like something that necessarily doesn't work. But this works.
I feel like the word proto punk though is punk. Like
Oh,
it's
I
like
guess. Okay.
It's such a punk vibe to say proto punk.
Also, grandfather punk
roots
sounds
punk.
like grandfather punk sounds like the Blink 182 2050 world tour.
Yeah.
But Chris, it's like
Love it.
Zeppelin 1, right? Zeppelin 1 is
Yeah.
a blues rock album.
Yeah.
But it also
So is this rock punk?
No, just let me go on this tangent. Like
Okay,
Zeppelin 1 is blues rock, but there's also other things in there that kind of set itself apart from classic blues rock.
Okay. Fair enough.
And so you can't really just go, this is a blues rock album. There's other things there that you need to kind of describe.
So then what do we
Otherwise,
call it?
If you describe blues rock as Zeppelin 1, you got to be, well, what? It's like, oh, there's a little bit of psychedelic in there. It's just hardcore rock and roll. It's hard
a bit of
rock,
hard rock.
right?
Yeah.
So you have to give it all those genres. Otherwise, if you tell someone to listen to it and they say, what's the genre? And you go, it's just blues rock. They're going to go,
Otherwise,
I
just
like
call
blues
everything rock.
Rock. Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
I get it. I just
I think the reason, like whether you disagree with proto or not, the word, the reason to give something like this that label, the label of proto, is so you can trace the lineage of a genre, right?
Again, I get it.
So punk, we go back from punk. What was happening between rock and punk? Like, because rock and roll, right, is like that early rock and roll is so different to punk. Like the 1950s rock and roll and
It's
punk.
completely different.
You know,
They turn these amps out. You hear some fuzz coming through, which, before they were going
and
for
it's
clean
faster
tones.
and it's more aggressive
And
the ethos is different.
Now,
So
what do they call
that's another
themselves?
thing too, Chris. Who, Paul Revere?
Yeah.
I would have
I
just been
think
called
they would
rock
have called
or
themselves
psych
rock and roll.
rock
It's
or garage rock.
1966.
Yeah,
Yeah.
see, I don't
So I think
But
they
they
one of the
can't
things
call
too,
themselves
Chris,
proto punk because punk doesn't exist.
No, but
they wouldn't have called
another
themselves
thing
proto
too, though.
punk.
Well, let's just hold back a second. The thing is that only certain parts of the album influence punk rock.
Yes,
right?
very true.
Like punk rockers didn't go, oh, Melody for an Unknown Girl really gets me going, and it really makes me anti-establishment to want to write this new music.
I'm going to write Anarchy in the UK.
No, so right, and so and there's a lot of pop. There's a lot of the Monkees in there. There's a lot of the Beatles.
there
There's
is.
a lot of the Stones.
Which is why I thought
a lot of it's really
nothing-
mellow.
None of that is punk music, right?
That's true.
But it's
Okay.
like, I'm sure there was a guy who was in a punk band in the 70s who heard bass lines from this album and was like, yeah, I'm gonna replicate this bass tone.
I would.
A drummer who's like, I'm gonna replicate this drum tone on this song, and they took bits and pieces from this album to make what punk music is today.
And
So
then
when you look at it
someone labeled-
retrospectively, they go, oh, it's like, well, where did that bass tone come from? They go, oh, I got that from a Paul Revere album.
So
It's
maybe
like, well, that's not punk.
punk. Yeah. So maybe my
But
argument then is
it was a template for punk.
yeah. So maybe my argument is this doesn't just fit into the proto punk scene because there's so much more. It like influenced other things as well.
That's why I think that's why Tom called it proto punk.
Punk,
right? Where
yeah,
It's like,
which-
there's like only 2 or 3 songs on
Yes.
this album
Yeah.
that
Which
could
I
have
pick- yeah.
possibly influenced
But it's
punk,
punk music.
Yeah.
I get it.
And we all
actually
picked it up,
preferred-
right?
I actually preferred the kind of garage and psych vibes.
Yes. That's what
me
that's
too.
what jumped out to me.
Like that kind of era, like mid to late 60s garage rock, psych rock,
Yeah.
Spirit, those kinds of bands.
Yeah.
Man, go do a deep dive into them. Fantastic stuff.
All right, Carvalho, you're real quiet on this front. You got anything?
What did you think of
What
this
did you-
album?
Yeah.
Oh,
let's see.
I love the album. And I agree with a lot of what you guys are saying. But Chris, I'm with you. I hate this label for this band. I really
Yeah,
do. It's probably just the proto part of it. But I get it. I just don't like the name of it. That's
Okay.
that's pretty much
I
all I
get
have
it.
to say about it
I get
because you guys covered everything else, and I
So
agree
let-
with basically everything you guys said.
So we're going to call them root punk from now on.
Root punk. I like. Do you know what?
God.
Because do you know what? They're not. Sure. Let's make up. Hey, screw it. If everyone else
new
could,
genre.
I got beef with that genre.
if anyone else could, if everyone else is just making up stupid names, let's just keep it going.
Do you know what is it? You know, we're calling it proto punk and blah blah blah, rock and roll, garage rock, psych rock. The line that stuck out to me in 2001 albums is pop punk just does not get any better.
Yeah, I would have to agree.
So, well, but you know, if this is 65, this is like 35 years before pop punk even exists, and this guy's saying this is the prototype
that's what it says
for
in the
pop punk.
That's what it says in the book about this album.
Oh, does it? Oh, that's really cool.
Yeah, it calls it pop punk.
It calls this album pop punk?
Well, it says pop punk just does not get any better.
Oh,
so it's saying this is you know, and I get that. It's, you know, it's light, it's breezy, but it's high energy, it's aggressive.
I think calling this album pop punk would work. I like that better.
Yeah,
so
I would have to agree with that.
Proto punk.
Proto pop punk?
Proto pop punk?
Oh my God.
Soft pop.
Yeah, this was a great listen, Dan. Honestly, what a great pick.
Yeah.
I was just like Chris. I didn't hear one of these songs prior to listening to this album. Everything was brand new to me and fresh. And you know what? Kind of a timeless record. I was like, shit, I would listen to this if this came out today.
Spot on, Matt.
I went looking for this today.
It is. You have to have this in the
have
collection.
this.
Okay,
I'm gonna have to find it.
Okay,
it's
so I talked to my buddy Paul at Looney Tunes, and I was the only one in the store today, which is very hard to get to. So you could actually talk to him for a bit.
That's the best.
Nice.
It was, and I was like, "Hey, do you have this?" And he's like, "I haven't seen this album for 2 years, so he hasn't been able to get it in new."
Shit.
And he's like, "And it's coming. It's back in the cycle." And he's like, "I used to have tons of them, and now I can't keep them in stock. I haven't seen it in 2 years." And I was like,
Wow.
crap. I'm like, how come whenever I'm jumping on the bandwagon,
missing it. Yeah.
everyone
So
else is?
I think if I'm not mistaken, Looney Tunes records though, they started a section 2 years ago that was called like proto punk. And every time he puts up
And was this in it?
every time he puts albums in it, they're gone instantly because people love proto punk.
They do have
And
a
this was
whole
always
section.
front and center.
They do
always
have a
front
whole
center.
King Gizzard section just for you two.
So you know what's cool about this too is that this is an early the copy that I have is an early release mono copy.
Nice.
Oh, sick. Big fan of
so
the mono
like-
copies.
And Columbia pressings too from the early '60s are sick.
are
right?
very
Yeah.
good.
To
Always
have
high
a
quality.
really high quality, great condition mono copy.
They're always
Finding
heavy.
a holy grail. They're super heavy. They're thick.
Columbia records. They're thick. Yeah.
Yeah.
I have a question. How much did you pay? You remember?
Paid $2 for it.
No.
Get out.
Fuck off.
Down.
Come on.
Man,
Like I said, this is like
we're going to Manitoulin.
this is like middle of nowhere. Like Gore Bay is the town, and it's a 2-hour drive from the bridge into Manitoulin. Right?
Yeah, that's
so it's
far,
it's in the middle of the island, and it's just an antique shop with junk, like all of the Barbra Streisand albums, Kenny Rogers,
Bangers. Just
Chris
bangers.
is just
tons
like
of
start the
orchestra-
car.
You know what I mean? Like the classic stuff that you find at like a
record,
Goodwill.
every thrift
Every
store.
German, what do you call it?
Here it's Kamal. There's Kamal
But you know what?
in every
You know
thrift
what though?
store.
I actually I found Exodus by Bob Marley.
Yeah, that's a
in
good-
that
yeah.
Oh,
collection.
damn. That's a good
And
one.
How much was that?
And that one I paid $10 for.
That's not bad.
A whole 10
Jamaican-
And then
Jamaican
and then
pressing?
Matt,
Canadian?
no, Canadian pressing. But
Good, 'cause the Jamaican
Matt
ones are
found a
garbage.
Talking Heads record.
Oh, nice.
shit.
Oh, wow.
Oh, yeah.
Right,
They're
so,
hard
like,
to find.
Yeah, there were some gems in there that we definitely sucked out of the collection. But
Nice.
I was in an
Yeah,
antique.
now it's just Barbra Streisand.
I say,
it's just Barbra Streisand and Kenny Rogers.
I was in an antique store and I sent Matt a text because they had some like early like 90s hip hop pressings.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Should
Yeah.
have bought every single one of those.
They
Chris.
weren't. So I was looking. The issue I had, they had a Two Life Crew album there, which was super sweet, but none of them were in their original sleeves. And the albums were.
not
It looked
worth
like a DJ, right? It was from a DJ's collection.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
They were
Still.
they were well played, but I was like, damn, like I was in the middle again. I was off Lake Erie in the middle of nowhere in this tiny little antique shop. But he wanted $20 each, and I was like,
No, that's too much.
With the right cover, it would have been
Maybe.
worth it. Yeah,
If it would have had the sleeve, yeah.
sleeve,
Yeah.
and if it was in a little better condition. But yeah, those little antique shops, sometimes every once in a while, yeah, there's some bangers in there.
So, Dan, you got one track to get people hooked on this? What are you picking?
Oh, that's a good question. I think I would have, for me, I think the one that really drew me in was All I Really Need Is You. I think that was the one where I was like, this is different. This is out there. And it really is a heavy, heavy banger. When you smile at me and say, you don't care for money, all my troubles go away. I'm so lucky, honey. All I really need is you by my side. All I really need is you.
I honestly,
love the start. I like Kicks, man.
I think Kicks is great.
Starts off strong.
And it's just like,
although
the whole album
interesting
goes one after another.
Interesting mid 60s being like a garage psych band and singing about not doing drugs.
yeah, like, yeah. Well,
So
yeah.
it's a bold move.
Okay.
But so that I tell you what, I listened to it earlier this week. I listened to it again this morning, and I could listen to it again after we record this. It's just a great album.
Yeah, it is.
Quick. It's quick. All the songs are quick. You don't need to be drawn in to listen to it.
Yeah.
No, I listened to it while making dinner. I had it on marking today. It's like enough where you can have it on like the background while you're doing things, but also you can also focus on it. I had it on while I was like rock climbing, and I was like, this is kind of fun, right? Like, it was a good.
It's mellow. It's mellow, but it's also fast.
Right? Yeah.
It's soft, but it's also rocks hard. It's
right.
Just great.
It doesn't like
punk.
Yeah.
Such great proto punk.
Grandfather proto punk.
Grandfather root punk.
Grandfather root
Godfather root punk.
Godfather.
prototype.
See, Godfather punk.
Proto pop punk root punk. Proto.
Let's call it G punk.
G punk.
OG
punk.
Right.
OG
Yeah,
punk.
OG punk.
Oh,
Isn't OG punk punk?
I don't know anymore.
Anyway.
I'm lost.
All right. So that is Paul Revere and the Raiders, Midnight Ride. Check it out. If you've got the book, 1001 albums, have a bit of a read, put it on, have a listen. Excellent choice, Dan. Really, thank you for sharing that. It's a new thing I have to add to my collection.
Definitely.
So that's great.
I think we all do. Thanks.
Totally.
Not for $2. I'm not paying more than $2 for it though.
Good luck.
Yeah, that's the benchmark has been set.
There are no reissues. It just is like a very, very slim pickings.
Yeah, because when I was talking to the guy, he said they didn't sell well, and they didn't make a lot of them.
Yeah, no, exactly.
Crazy.
Same with the band I picked, which is
Chris?
absolutely insane.
What did you pick?
All right, I got MC5. Kick out the jams.
Oh yeah.
What?
Kick-ass pick.
Oh,
Kick-ass
man.
pick.
This is a belter.
Okay, so this is one of the ones where I was like scrolling through, and I was like, "Oh, boys, I'm screwed. None of this is speaking to me. I'm gonna have to go into the '90s. Like, I was missing everything." And I was like, and this one jumped out, and I had like a flashback to university. And I remember when that Rage album came out, where they did all the cover songs. And I was a little late to the Rage party, so I was actually a Rage fan after they broke up. But anyway, and I remember getting that on CD from my sister and her friend for my birthday, and putting it on and hearing Kick Out the Jams and being like, this song is next level good. And so I actually went the opposite way. I went like Rage Against the Machine and then jumped into back in time into MC5. And it was like, honestly, like, it's the, like, you could hear the influence. Like, every time now I listen to a Rage album, I'm like picking up on MC5 vibes that they like. Even the solos.
You can hear like 40 years of influence in this album.
Yes.
Like,
it's crazy.
It's just brutal rock and roll.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is way more proto punk than that Paul Revere record. Like, this is like,
I have to agree.
And I'm not making a joke about it,
No.
about the genre, but like, this is like, oh shit, you're hearing a lot of punk music in this.
See, and I would argue again, this to me might be the start like of punk, because I would agree with you. This is more than proto punk to me, which is where I took kind of my issue to that. This I'm hearing straight up. This is they recorded this. The album came out, I think it's 1969. They recorded it in 1968. Like, this is punk music.
In the middle of the flower power revolution.
Well,
right?
It's nuts. Like, they start the album, but they start the album with that idea of revolution. So they're taking that flower power, that peace, that love, and like right off the bat, they're talking about like who's here to who's here to revolt? Who's here to like have a good time and just get to it?
Yeah. Screw the peace love revolution. Let's actually have a revolution.
Let's have an actual revolution.
But Chris, like to reiterate what you're saying and to kind of also bridge what I'm trying to say, like this is like it's not fully a punk album, but there's songs on this album that I would say this is purely punk rock. It's not just like a bass tone or a guitar tone or a drum track. This is a full on punk song.
Yes.
Lyrically, right?
Lyrically, yes.
Lyrically,
the spirit
vibe.
Of it. Yeah.
And then there are other songs on this album are not punk rock.
There's one that's like blues rock. Like
blues rock. Yeah. There's like funk rock you hear, which is where like the Rage Against the Machine vibes come in.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
I can't remember, and again, because I listened to way too much music this week. The issue was I crammed it all in.
Yeah.
And there's like a solo, and I can't remember what song it's on, but I was like, holy crap, that's like literally a Rage solo. Like the where he's kind of hitting the notes over and over again, and you're like, I'm like, you can feel that kind of connection to people argue post-punk, the kind of, or what do you call it, like rap rock kind of vibes where they're like mixing the sounds, making more than just solos. They're making noises with the guitar.
These guys are pre and post punk,
right? Which is not
proto rap rock,
pre-punk and post-punk,
right?
Can you imagine seeing this live in 1968?
Okay, like, it reminded me of that scene from Back to the Future.
Yeah, this would have blown your mind.
Yeah, they would have been like, "You guys aren't ready for this."
Yeah,
but also, you would have had people going and be like, "What the hell is this? I'm getting out of here."
I guess you guys aren't ready for that yet. But your kids are gonna love it.
Now, this is kind of embarrassing, so I'm gonna say it though. So I do remember owning a copy of this. It was in rough shape though. So I actually had to go out today and buy a new one.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I might be picking one up tomorrow.
It is a reissue because talking to Paul, my boy again.
You guy.
I called him and was like, "Hey, dealer. I need this." And I'm like, "Please tell me you have." I'm like, "I don't care. I just want a used copy." And he's like, "I haven't seen it in a year. No. I got a new copy." He's like, and I'm like, "Fine." And I walked around. I was like, "I'm not gonna buy it," but he put it in my hand, and I walked around the whole store like 4 times, and I was like, "Crap." So I walked out with it. But nice. It feels dirty because
the authenticity of for you to go out to a store and buy a copy when you already had a copy. You could have this is not a visual medium. You couldn't.
No.
Away with it.
No, but there's a reason again, and it's the copy I have is in bad, like I'm talking horrible shape, and I think I don't know where it came from. It wasn't my dad's.
As a lot of your copies of records are.
Yes, but this one came like that. And
it came like that.
No, well, when I inherited it, it was already in rough shape, and it wasn't my dad's copy.
You're not throwing John on it.
No, I'm not throwing John this time. But Kick Out the Jams had a giant scratch on it, so you could never make it through the whole song.
One song.
The one, right. So I was like, okay, I need to invest in an actual copy that I'm gonna take care of. So I will find it. Now I am curious to go back and look at my original copy, which is in storage at my parents' house, to see if it is what album it is, because they do censor it. And I didn't know this. I just learned this today. So he actually says in the beginning of the song, he actually drops an MF bomb at the beginning of the song.
And it's not in your copy?
It's not in my copy. My copy is a censored version because my copy is a censored version. And I'm really curious. They replaced it with, and I read it earlier today, and I can't. They replaced the lyric, and they actually got dropped from their label because of the controversy around it.
They're the most punk thing of this is this album got them dropped from their label.
Yeah. Oh wow!
Because it was so controversial. Because they were inciting revolution.
Wow. Yes,
and swearing,
and
it was the 60s.
Yeah, right. And they weren't. And people weren't ready for it.
There were still some delicate souls.
Punk.
Yeah,
so punk.
Yeah, so in Ramblin' Rose, when he starts, the original release says, "Kick out the jams, motherfucker." Motherfuckers, sorry. We'll bleep that out if we need
plural.
to. Well, plurals, right? Which I
fuck
do
that.
believe.
We're keeping it.
Okay, we'll just do a warning again. I do believe in the Rage Against the Machine version, they do the same thing. They drop the MF bomb.
Mother fluffers.
Yeah, there you go. So yeah, that was pretty cool. I was like, that's definitely punk. And I'm curious to see my original copy if the scratch isn't. I bet you the scratch is through that part too. But what copy I have of that? So it'd be cool to get an original copy.
Yeah, for sure.
I've kept an eye out for MC5 and the Stooges here in Australia, and because we're so far away from everywhere, we have a small population. We always got less. There were less copies of albums pressed here, so they're either imported copies, which are expensive, or they're Australian pressings, which are even more expensive because there's less of them. If you can find this album in good condition, I would say it's probably $50 to $60 if you can find it in good condition. Same with the Stooges. You're talking OG Stooges, $70 to $100.
Yeah, easily.
Wow.
And the reason the good condition, and Paul told me today, again, dropping Paul from Looney Tunes, dropped some wisdom on me. He said, the reason these albums are in such bad condition is people brought them to parties and they got out of control.
Makes sense.
Nice.
And I was like,
that's what it used to be with, everyone used to write their names on covers or labels, right? Because you'd go to
I got a couple of
and-
those.
Yeah.
Yeah, same.
We're gonna have to have a record party at some point.
Yeah,
for
for
sure. Yeah.
But in proper master sleeves with outer sleeve protectors, except for Chris's bun
paper sleeves, right, boys?
I was gonna say you'll know which ones are Chris's because they won't have any protection.
He's gonna take them out like this, pinching them on both sides with his thumb and index finger.
That's right. I learned a new way to clean records today.
Did you?
Really good. Yeah.
Let's hear it.
Yeah. Goat's hair. Goat's hair brushes.
Interesting.
Oh, that's for the anti-static, right?
So you brush it first, then
Yeah.
give it a nice bath, and then a vacuum clean. And supposedly they're like, that's how every record that comes from Looney Tunes is done. He doesn't do
Immaculate.
the what do you call
Ultrasonic?
it? The ultrasonic. He's like,
I've
there's
got
no
a-
point. He's like, you need a long-haired goat's brush, and you're good. And I was like,
If
man,
you
I'm learning so much today.
if you get one of those anti-static brushes, do it. I do it every time before I spin a record because when they're staticky, that's when, and they're spinning, that's when they're hoovering up all that dust and stuff.
Yeah, and you got like a fuzzball on your needle.
Yeah.
I've got a bit of a DIY record cleaner that I'm gonna.
Are you gonna buy one of the ultrasonic baths?
No, I've got.
Vacuum?
It's gonna be a play on a vacuum cleaner, and I think I've got a really good idea on how to make it for really, really cheap.
Nice.
To almost get the same effect. So I think I'm gonna try to make one, and then I'll probably write
share
blog
it?
for the.
Do it.
No, write a blog for the readers.
Do a reel.
Oh, do a real.
Yeah, we'll do a real content. You know, we'll do
Yeah,
some
we'll
content.
do
If
some
it involves
Insta
Lego,
stuff.
I'm in. Let's do some Lego stuff with that. It's fun. 3D printing. We could do some fun things. Let's go.
So, Chris, what track? And don't say kick out the jams.
No.
Oh
I'm not.
wait, sorry. Before you pick a song, can we also just make a comment that this is a live album?
Yeah.
Yes.
Which
Yeah,
is
yeah.
Like this is
insane.
their debut release. and
That's what I was
it's
saying.
live album.
It's a
Imagine
live album.
seeing
It's
them,
amazing.
and
Big
it's just
fan.
chaos, right? It is
Yeah.
chaos.
Oh, yeah.
Sorry, Chris. Also, I just want to say that Rage album when it first came out, I didn't realize it was covers until I heard like one song that I'd heard before. Maybe it was Maggie's Farm.
Yep.
But man, that album threw me onto so many different bands, like MC5. That Bruce Springsteen, the cover of Ghost of Tom Joad,
Love it.
like
That's such a
Love it.
good song.
Oh,
yeah,
that we could
just-
do a whole album on that and or a whole show on that.
Yeah, no kidding.
Good thing Matt just picked that up. Son of a
Yeah,
bitch.
that was so
Yeah.
weird that
Yeah.
we were literally talking about it, and I picked it up that very same day.
Do yourselves a favor to the listeners, because I've spoken about this ad nauseum to these guys, but to the listeners, jump on the YouTube, search for Ghost of Tom Joad, Bruce Springsteen, Tom Morello live.
It's good
That's
stuff.
a great video. Great video.
Yeah. Oh.
All
Okay.
right, what do we got?
I'm gonna go with the first track. I'm gonna go Ramblin' Rose because
Nice.
of the speech at the beginning, and it dives right into it, and you hear this band come to life, and
the
that's
chaos.
Yes,
It's just pure chaos.
It is.
I love
and
it.
and you hear the scream of the guitars. The amps are clearly pushed past their limits.
Oh yeah.
Because they're not designed to be, and it's just
Yeah.
this is it. And you can picture, if you get yourself a copy of the album, you can see the chaos on the actual album itself.
Yeah.
And that's what is burned into my brain when that song starts.
I'm gonna put you down.
So, before we get on to the next one, I will leave the listeners with a line from 1001 Albums that talks about this, and I think it summarizes perfectly what you hear and what it would have been like to be at that gig. It's an album where you can smell the pepper spray, feel the heat from the burning flags, and sense the revolution raging.
Oh wow.
What a quote.
Yeah.
And Tom, just before we get into your pick here, Chris, the point that you made in both my pick and yours, just to tie into this whole proto punk rock, I think a big driver of the punk scene is like a necessity to have lo-fi sort of DIY recordings,
Yeah.
and to not have any other effects, but to just push your guitar and your amp to the absolute limit to get that tone. And that's another reason why this fits so, like that and Paul Revere album fits so well into punk music. It's just that's what those guys are doing. The cheap setups, crank them all the way to get as much gain and as much overdrive as you can find.
Well, it's funny. This album is actually quite harsh if you listen to it at high volumes. I was listening to this on headphones, and I had to actually turn it down a little bit because I was like, this is killing my ears. It's just so harsh, but it's so amazing.
It screams.
Yeah,
it's
it
literally
really
screaming.
does.
Yeah.
This album turned up and my daughter screaming in my ear have the same effect. Like,
Yeah.
it's just like that. you're just like, yeah.
You just want to kick out the jams.
Yeah. Man,
Chris, great pick.
One of your best picks ever.
Oh,
Yeah.
Okay. Do you know what? I'm so happy this book because I forgot about this album. I'm not going to lie. And the second it popped up, I was like, oh, I haven't played this album in like 15 years. No, not that long, but 10 years I haven't listened to this album.
Awesome.
This is why the book is so great.
Yeah.
Yeah, I need a copy.
I love it as a a piece of reference material. It sits next to my turntable.
Yeah.
And if I'm at if I have downtime and I'm listening to records, I'll just sit and flip through this book and like read up on albums I have, albums I want, albums I've never heard of. It's really cool.
It's a good call.
Hey Lee, if you're listening, Father's Day is coming up. You can get me the newest edition.
There you go.
She doesn't listen. It's all right. Bev does. Bev, hint, tell Lee.
There you go.
Yeah, I think I actually got this as a birthday gift one year. It's one of the best gifts. I like you, Tom. I flip through this book constantly.
Love it. Big fan. Big fan. All right, Tom.
Okay.
What do you got for us?
This is quite a departure from our last two picks. Or maybe not so much Paul Revere, but certainly a departure from MC5.
Oh yeah.
I'm going to go with Grateful Dead's American Beauty. Oh man, what a warm, heartfelt, beautiful collection of songs. Like
so beautiful.
Good.
It
Yeah,
is-
that's a
it
good
is-
description.
This
It's
is
an A+ album.
A++. I listen to this album so often, and I almost always listen to it on vinyl. It's one of those ones that suits all occasions. I don't think there's a bad song on it. I think it is.
Nope.
It's certainly their most accessible album. They can't. This is the album to listen to if you're not sure about the Dead and you're trying to get into them, and that was the case for me. This is
Me too. Yep.
This is their fifth album. It was released in 1970. They released two albums in 1970: Working Man's Dead and American Beauty. By far, those two would be their most accessible and probably their most successful albums. It was a departure from their early psychedelic stylings, and why it was more accessible, I think, is because it was sort of going back to their folk roots. They're that sort of Americana vibe, and just beautiful songwriting, beautiful harmonies. They really harnessed the studio for the first time.
Mm-hmm.
They're a jam band. They were a house band, a live band, and their early stuff is really psychedelic and really hard to kind of get a handle on if you're new to them. And so these, I think, made them much more accessible, and just the musicianship and the songwriting really shines on this album.
Yeah, I would have to agree, Tom. I had never listened to this album before you brought it up, and wow, was I missing out? Because I've always found like the Grateful Dead, they seem like it's a bit of a daunting task to get into them as a band, right? Because they do have such a catalog of music and various degrees of genres in their music. But this was just a perfect album. Like you had blues rock, you had like just traditional rock. I feel you even had a little bit of like folky rock, maybe even borderline country root. You know what I mean? It was just what a great album to throw on and just sit back and listen. It was magnificent. Definitely got to check more of the music out.
It's like sinking into a really comfortable chair listening to this album.
I was literally just about to say, you sit back, you sink into a nice comfy chair, you grab a nice glass of something you enjoy, and just enjoy the music.
Yeah, it's mellow, it's upbeat, it's funny, it's sad, it's beautiful.
I find the lyrics were great too.
I find this and Working Man's Dead is in that same sort of category where they're both like very almost like I would call almost his whole album folk rock, right? Like it's very much rock and roll.
Rock. Yeah.
It's like the band. It's like late, like early Dylan, electric Dylan, right? It's Crosby, Stills and Nash, stuff like that, right? Neil Young and Crazy Horse, stuff like that, right? And it's a perfect album. Like
it really is.
It's so
faultless.
Good. Yeah, it is faultless. Seriously,
the songwriting is incredible.
It's unbelievable.
This is one of those albums where, again, I was like, I don't know very much Grateful Dead. And I put it on, and I went, oh, I know this song.
Yeah.
Oh, I know this song.
Yeah. Friend of the Devil, Truckin', Sugar Magnolia.
Yeah. It ends with, like, Truckin', and I was like, oh, okay. Yeah. Literally, I think there was one, like, surprise on there, and I was like, holy crap, this is all on one album?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I recognized only one or two songs off this as I was listening. The rest was all brand new to me.
Oh, that would be exciting. It's always exciting when that happens.
Yeah.
So the story behind this is my old editor in Canada is a deadhead, big time deadhead, John Zoronic, Jay-Z. He would hate me calling him that. He's not a Jay-Z. He's a John Zoronic. But
or like an actual deadhead.
An actual deadhead. Yeah. And he just would never stop talking about the Dead, would never stop talking about Jerry Garcia. He would like force feed me CDs. One day he came into the office and like handed me 15 Grateful Dead CDs and was like telling me which ones I have to listen to and like this and I was trying. I was like really trying to get into them because, I respect him and I love his taste in music and we would always talk about music, but I just couldn't get into them. I find like my taste, or probably most people's, certainly all of ours, taste in music is like a tapestry. And as you go along in life, you kind of add new bits of fabric to the tapestry. And you might get a piece of green fabric at some point in your life and it's not the right time to add green fabric to the tapestry. So you put it aside, put it in the box and come back to it later. And that's what it was for the Dead. It just wasn't the right time for me I just wasn't vibing with them. And then for some reason, like 5 years ago, my dad gave me one of their live albums from his collection. He wasn't really into it, so he gave it to me. And I was like, this is the way I needed to hear the Dead was live, was a concert, because they're a jam band. And that's what they were known for, was their live gigs. That's what the Deadheads were. They followed them around and went to these gigs and swapped tapes and shared bootlegs. And so,
that's cool.
And then it clicked, and I was like,
bootleg.
It clicked. I was like, man, I get it now. I get it. And then since then, I've just been on a mission to buy all of their albums on vinyl. And I finally I had to get Working Man's Dead and American Beauty. Finally got them a few years ago from a private collection. And yeah,
they are not cheap.
No, they're not cheap. I got them reasonably cheap for Australia. They're OGs, which I'm really happy about.
Wow,
I don't have any reissues. I have all OGs for Dead. I've got about 10 of their albums now.
Nice.
So I'm in. I'm in.
Yeah, they're not easy to find, and they're usually $30+.
Yeah, I try and buy. I recently bought 3 Dead albums from one person, so I'm always trying to
That's great.
But yeah, man, I can't believe it took me so long. But just their music. The thing about the Dead too is they came at a really interesting time in society. You know, they're part of this really important movement in the US in that, you know, late 60s, that psychedelic movement, that counterculture movement. You know, if you do a little bit of, I would say there's a really interesting docu-series on them called Long Strange Trip. If anyone's interested in their history, that's well worth watching. And like it's fascinating, right? So there's a connection between the Grateful Dead and the CIA. Which, you know, some people who know the Dead know. People who don't, it's like, what? So MK Ultra in the 60s, right? The CIA were trying to figure out mind control. They want, you know, the Cold War, they were convinced the Russians had some sort of mind control powers, and they wanted to unlock this. And one of the ways that they were trying to do this was with LSD. And the MK Ultra experiment or program, or whatever you want to call it, they were testing LSD on people to try and unlock mind control. Crazy stuff, right?
Oh, wow.
This is the US government.
Welcome to Create Expectations, a podcast where we uncover different conspiracy theories.
So Ken Casey, who's part of the counterculture movement in the 60s, wrote One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
He was a test subject in MK Ultra, and he started doing acid test parties. They called them acid tests, where he would just have a big old bucket of acid in a house party, and they would have a house band, and everyone would take acid, and they would explore their subconscious. And the Dead were a house band at these acid tests.
Oh, I can see that. I can see that. Wow. Yeah, that makes sense. It makes a lot of sense.
And Robert Hunter, who's a lyricist for the Dead, was also part of those tests. So,
Jesus.
like, the CIA gave us acid and psychedelic music.
Yeah.
Wow. They gave us the war on drugs and the Grateful Dead.
Yeah, no kidding.
They gave us the war on drugs and the drugs.
Yeah.
So, like, that's one
classic,
that's one little snippet of the history of the Grateful Dead and their place in, you know, a really interesting time in history. So
that's pretty cool.
And on top of that, the music is awesome.
Yeah, cool. That's a really cool.
Yeah.
I didn't know that about the Dead.
Yeah. So, it's really hard to pick a track from this album.
Yeah. How do you do that?
Because they're all so good, and there's some really obvious choices. But I'm going to go with, I like deep cuts, and I think this is a less obvious choice, but this song almost brings me to tears every time I listen to it. It's the opening track. It's Box of Rain.
Nice.
Yeah.
Great tune.
I mean,
good pick.
Phenomenal song. Yeah. The lyrics are like cryptic, but also you understand what he's saying. He's not saying something obvious, but you get what he's saying, and it's like a feeling and emotion that he's talking about. And
it's deep.
It was written by Phil Lesh and Robert Hunter. So Robert Hunter's for the Dead was almost purely a lyricist, and Phil Lesh is the bassist and had not sung for them before. And Phil Lesh sings it, and they wrote it about Phil's dad, who was not well at the time. And it's just this son singing to his dad. And at the same time, it's not. At the same time, it could be about anyone and what they're going through. And this box of rain that you carry around, man, it's
a deep song.
I I cannot wrap my head around
Great pick.
that level of songwriting. How you
think-
like
What do you want me to do for you, to see you through? For this is all a dream we dream.
I think the whole album in general is just something that just moves you. I feel like that any song on this album can bring you to tears. It's just such a beautiful record.
Yeah.
it's so warm.
Oh yeah.
It's so
But it's
It's a good-
cheeky
it's
too. Like
powerful.
it's
It is.
it's really there's really like funny parts to it as well. Like Jerry Garcia was a funny guy. He had a really cheeky sense of humor. Yeah, man.
So I had this on my list of like rainy day records, but I also had it on my list of like Sunday afternoon like vibing records as well.
Yeah.
And I was like, this is one of the rare ones where you could put it on, like and when you're in a good mood or when you're in just a shit mood.
Yeah.
Like it works both ways, and I think that's it's so special, especially trucking, man.
Yeah.
Rainy day or not, I'm in.
great
I'm in for
tune.
trucking. Oh,
Yeah,
what
man.
what a bang! That's a banger of a tune.
What a
Holy
vibe.
For
crap.
me, it's I find "Friend of the Devil" to just be
Friend of
Yeah, that's a great
perfect
tune
song.
too.
It's a
The
perfect song.
opening guitar to that, and then the bass comes in. Yeah,
Oh.
we could do a whole episode
Yeah.
on this album,
Yeah.
unpacking every tune.
Yeah. Matt, clip the Friend of the Devil right there. Just clip it.
Set out running, but I take my time. A friend of the devil is a friend of mine. I get home before daylight, just might get some sleep tonight. I ran down to the
So I'll leave you with another line from the book. I think it's a good summary. It's not particularly insightful, but it just really neatly summarizes this album. The definitive album by the group, its influence has resonated in successive generations of musicians.
Nice.
Yep. Makes sense to me.
Yeah,
And now,
absolutely must listen to before you die.
must listen to.
Oh, yeah.
It's a great pick.
And now we're going to jump forward by about 20 years.
It's a big gap.
Matt
finally not American.
Supernova. Yeah, not American. Matt Supernova Carvalho. What do you got?
What do you got?
So I'm going with Oasis. What's the Story? Morning Glory. This is one of my favorite albums of all time.
Album. Oh,
Yeah.
Huge.
I did not realize how big of an album this was, probably up until I got this book. I knew the album well. I knew all the music from it, but I did not know how big of an album it was. Like, their first album was a banger and really put them on the map. This one made them explode. And they were just at the top of the rock charts and the music world at the time. These guys, for me, was probably one of the first bands that, I decided, this is what I like in music. When you're growing up, when you're young, your parents are playing what they like in the background, or they're playing, rock, top 40 stuff or classic rock and stuff. And you're like, oh, that's a good song. This is a good song. But this is one thing where I was like, oh, you know what? I like this. This is for me. I also think this album contains 2, if not 3 of the best songs ever written of all time.
wow.
What do you got?
And it's
It might-
not
it-
from
th-
Paul
there might be
McCartney.
a
Paul
con-
McCartney's not on this album, though.
it might be a controversial picks, but Matt, I know exactly what you're saying.
Yeah, I know what
Yeah.
song.
That
You don't even
let's
have to
hear
tell
it.
me the songs, but I do
Let's
want
hear
to hear.
So the 2 big ones for me are obviously Wonderwall and Don't Look Back in Anger. The third one, though, would obviously be Champagne Supernova.
Sure.
I would say these are within the best 500 songs ever written of all time.
So it's at least some of the most important songs of the 90s.
Yes.
Yeah.
100%. Like even the deep tracks on this album are incredible. I love the way this album starts. It's a riff that they go back to later on the album, and then they jump in with Hello. And this album really does take you through a journey. It's got high points, it's got more mellow points, and then ends with Champagne Supernova. It's just great.
Yeah.
I don't know if you guys have taken a moment to listen to the B-sides on this record. They're all bangers. Like, they could have easily made this record a double album, easily.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just incredible how great of a record this is, start to finish.
every single song. Like I don't remember the last time I actually listened to the whole album.
It's a long
I
album.
might have been
It is.
I might have been a kid the last time I heard the whole thing front to back. But it's like every single song could have easily have been a single.
Oh, 100%. And same
It's
with their
unbelievable.
B-sides too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You couldn't-
So I'm with Dan. I was like, Matt, you threw this album out there, and I was like, ugh, right? But then I started listening to it.
Because of Wonderwall, right? Like
Yes,
so
was
it's
like,
that one
ugh.
song. It's
You
such a
could-
perfect song, but
Song-
it's been played so
So much.
much.
Canadian radio.
You couldn't go to a house party in the 2000s without some dude banging that out on an acoustic guitar.
His guitar sitting under the tree, and
Probably Dan.
Dan, yeah, no, not even Dan. It was
No,
yeah.
I refuse to play that song.
No, this would be like a Steve
You're
Cookson.
so
move.
cool, man.
Shout out to Steve Cookson and his acoustic playing Wonderwall.
Yes.
But like, yeah, and I was like, oh man, really? Instantly put it on and was like, oh
Oh, yeah.
yeah. And then again, I'm not gonna lie, I skipped over Wonderwall. I listened to a bit of it to be like, okay, I get it where it fits in the album, and then I skipped it and went to the next song and was just like, man, I don't think I listened to this album front to back. Yeah, and since I was a kid, right? Or maybe even ever. I might even say I've never listened to it front to
Maybe
back ever.
because that was singles back then, right?
Then, right? And so I listened to this album 4 times in a row. Put it
Wow.
on. And
Wow,
that's when I
That's
messaged
so good.
That's when I messaged the group and was like, holy hell.
Yeah.
And Matt, I felt bad because the last couple albums you've been putting out there, I've been like not jamming with it all. I haven't felt
Oh, really?
right? I haven't felt the vibes. And then I was
Oh,
just
man.
like, this is it. I'm in. Like, and then I think by the 3rd time, I fit Wonderwall in and I like listened to it and I had like, I just kept it going. I had it on loop and I was like, that's the first time in a long time. I just kept playing the album over and over again.
I will say, guys, like this playlist that we put together to pre-listen, this has been the most solid. This is the one that like you could come back to and put it
It's
on.
up there. Yeah.
Put it on
Shuffle.
on shuffle.
Yeah.
And it works.
Yeah.
And it's just like every single song that comes on, you wouldn't want to skip.
Yeah.
Every
agree.
single song is a great song. There's no weak song on any of these albums.
There's no going from like punk music to the Sound of Music.
Or yeah, Ella Fitzgerald, right?
Oh, yeah. When Ella Fitzgerald was in this playlist.
Yeah, it didn't work.
Well, no, like I picked that when Tom had American Beauty, and I was like, okay, maybe we'll do so like a organized chaos of 4 different genres. And then as soon as Chris picked MC5, I was like, oh
It's not
shit,
gonna work.
we're gonna have to. If we put Paul Revere in there instead, it's gonna be a really nice progression of rock music through.
And
the
it
ages.
was. It is.
It was. And I think Oasis fits in this mix too. Like
I think so too.
They take these roots of like all these bands. They kind of have a little Grateful Dead in them. They have the attitude of MC5, that's for sure.
Oh yeah.
Right.
These guys got some spice to them.
They definitely.
These guys are like the revival of British invasion. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So here's a question I want to put out to you guys, and this might be a little controversial. People might be like, "Fuck you," but that's why I'm bringing it up. Would you guys say this is almost like the second coming of Britpop, the Beatles, etc.?
7,000%.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Because I've had this discussion before, and people have been like, "No."
Those
You're
people
wrong.
are idiots.
I would have to
You can't
agree.
like
Matt,
if people are hearing that question and they're going, how could you possibly compare these guys to the Beatles? Yeah, I mean, it's a hard no for me. You know how much I'm a Beatles fan, but
That's not what I'm doing.
if that's
No.
not what your question is, that's
It is-
exactly.
Matt, to quote.
Is this the revival of Britpop?
yes.
To quote the
Yes.
book, at the epicenter of Britpop, a cultural revolution that swept Britain in the 90s.
There you go.
Well, look who they led to, right? Like Blur came out
The
after
Verve.
these. The Verve.
Yeah.
And then going into like the Gorillas, like have roots
Yeah.
all within this, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
It's
These were
nuts.
one of the biggest bands of the 90s.
Yeah.
One of the biggest bands in
One
the
of the
world
biggest
still.
albums of the 90s.
Yeah.
You still say Oasis. You still mention their names, and it causes people still care about the riff between the two of them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like they're huge.
And,
Sibling
you know,
rivalry,
yeah.
baby.
well, you're not going to compare them to the Beatles.
No.
Like you talk about that Britpop. I mean, the biggest song on the album is called Wonderwall.
Mm-hmm.
Like that was one of George Harrison's solo albums. Like they're wearing their hearts on their influences on their sleeve. They're saying we are the
Absolutely.
second coming of Britpop.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think they own it. I think they do a great job. Yeah.
Yeah.
No question, Matt.
Yeah.
Whoever's saying that, bring them on the show.
They're,
We'll rip
they're
them apart.
idiots. Yeah. I don't even
that.
like they. Yeah. These guys are one of the most important bands of the '90s. Like,
Yeah,
they're-
100%.
Easily. I never
And
liked them.
I don't care what anybody says. These guys were still making solid music up until the point they broke up. You might not have jived with it, but for me, they were still making really, really solid music. And if you listen to any of their side projects since they've broken up, High Flying Birds, Birdie, both are like put out great material. Definitely worth checking out.
There's the ongoing history of
Oh,
new
sorry,
music.
not Birdie, BDI.
The ongoing history of new music do a great episode on them.
Oh, nice.
And like
That'd be
and on
worth
their
checking out.
it is.
Shout
and
out
on
to
their,
Alan Cross.
Yeah,
That's such a good
He's
Yeah,
got one
shout out.
coming up with Taylor Hawkins and the Foo Fighters this weekend.
Oh wow.
Oh wow.
Oh wow.
Yeah, rest in peace to Taylor Hawkins
Yeah.
as well.
Man, so sad.
Yeah,
A legend
seriously.
goes down.
Yeah.
Just devastating.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, it's pretty wild.
What?
Moment of silence.
Yeah, jeez.
Sorry
Matt,
about that.
what song are you picking from this?
So before I pick a song, have you guys listened to any of the B-sides off of this? Like Talk Tonight, Acquiesce, any of those?
I don't think so.
If I have, I couldn't
I couldn't tell you the name
tell
of them.
you.
Okay,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
definitely worth checking out. Like I said, these guys seriously could have put probably together a double album with this. For song off this album, I don't want to pick a single because everybody knows the big singles off this one. A personal favorite for me, which is what I think I'm going to go with, is Cast No Shadow. Love that song.
That jumped out to me.
Boom.
Yeah, that's one of my favorite songs on this record.
Bound with all the weight of all the words he tried to say. As he faced the sun, he cast no shadow. As they took him.
And it's just like this feels like the soundtrack to my youth. This like
Yeah.
I can picture
Yeah.
the video
Seriously.
clip to Wonderwall
Yeah.
perfectly in my mind.
Seriously.
It's a great song.
I think I
don't
had
care.
this on cassette.
Oh, it's a great song.
Like,
I was
It's a
shocked.
great song.
I know it's
wish-
overplayed, but it's still you still sing along to it every time you hear it.
Oh yeah.
Oh man.
Amazing.
What a collection of albums,
Yeah.
gents. That's like Dan said, that playlist, that's going to be on a heavy rotation in my place.
Yeah.
I favorited it. Like, yeah, it's
It's a great
one of the
playlist.
hey, anyone listening, go out there. Yeah, you can listen to it too. It's on Tom, I think this is under your
It's actually on
account,
my
right?
personal account. Yeah, that's okay.
okay.
I'll put it on
We'll
there.
share it
I'll
out
make it
there.
shareable.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, it's wicked.
I actually should just start sharing them from there because it's a premium account. I don't think I can share the other ones. But anyway, so we're talking Paul Revere and the Raiders, Midnight Ride, MC5, Motor City 5, Kick Out the Jams, Grateful Dead, American Beauty, Oasis, What's the Story, Morning Glory. Before we get into the next section, I've been record shopping on that street that album cover was shot on in London.
No.
Oh,
Yeah, yeah.
That's cool.
I bought Exodus from a store in London on that street.
Amazing. I love it.
So we're going to do something a little bit different in these 1001 albums. In the spirit of the book, instead of doing a hot take, getting all hot and bothered, we're going to talk about new music. There's a lot of new music out there, obviously. We need to keep current because we got this year in review at the end of the year. I don't want to listen to 700 albums again like I had to last year to try and make a pick. That was like cramming for an exam. So we
Yeah.
got to keep current. Who's got some new music for us?
So
Matt?
Jack White's got a new album coming out next week. Lead single off that is amazing.
Is
every-
Fear of the Dawn the lead single?
you know what? I
Or
think
is
it is. Let me just double check.
Is that what you were talking about?
That's the record I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Man, every single time I hear him put out new music, I'm just like, I miss the White Stripes.
Yeah.
Man, his music's just it's just so creative, from album to album. The sounds he gets, like the songwriting, everything it's just so unique. Each record.
You're
It's
talking
amazing.
about when you heard Oasis and you were like, oh, this is what I like.
Yeah.
That's what I'm like with Jack White. I haven't listened to him in so long, and then I saw that video clip for Fear of the Dawn come out.
Yeah.
And I watched it and I was like, oh man, I missed this.
Yeah.
I missed the guitar
absolutely.
tone. I missed his voice.
Yeah.
He's got this amazing ability to create what just sounds like blues rock and roll, but then it's got this hard edge,
It's heavy.
It's heavy. That Fear of the
Yeah.
Dawn,
It's really
it's
heavy.
like heavy metal.
Oh,
almost.
it's fucking amazing.
And the what's that instrument called? That proximity instrument. It's annoying.
Yeah,
Theremin?
I'm not sure.
Yes, it's got a theremin in it. You can see it in the clip. That's what's creating all those really funky, weird, like
Nintendo sounds?
Halloween type sounds. Yeah,
Nice.
Oh, that's cool.
That's really cool.
yeah. It's I watched, I don't know, like maybe half an hour's worth of Jack White video clips after that song came out.
So cool.
I
He's
went
just
back
so
and
creative, man. He's an innovator.
Big
But yeah,
time.
he's got new music. Chili Peppers just dropped a new record today. I picked that up. Or actually, sorry, I shouldn't say I picked it up. It arrived like literally an hour before we started recording this.
Oh, wow.
Can't wait to listen to that.
Did you get 2 copies?
Nice.
No, just one. It's an expensive record, man.
Is it? Yeah.
Yeah, it was expensive.
Is
must
it
say,
double? Is it a double album?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm
They always do
interested to
double
hear
albums. Yeah.
because I haven't.
It's the first one with John back with the group.
Wow. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Then that's
Yeah.
worth
Nice.
listening to because I haven't
Yeah.
I haven't really listened to them since Californication. Really.
Really? Mine would be
Oh,
Stadium
wow.
Arcadium.
Yeah, me too.
I didn't.
Stadium
I
Arcadium's
didn't
the
vibe
last one.
Stadium Arcadium.
Oh man, that summer that album came out. That
That was huge. Yeah.
That's all I had playing. That's such a good
Yeah.
cottage album.
I
It's
did.
so good.
I did pick up Mother's Milk on OG copy of Mother's Milk recently.
Nice.
Yeah,
I must have
That
ran.
looks
amazing.
beautiful.
Penny.
That's a good find.
Yeah.
That's yeah. That should be in 1001 albums. It's not,
yeah,
but it
I
should
agree.
be.
It's not. Is there any Chili Peppers?
Blood,
in
Sugar,
there?
Sex, Magic
Yeah.
is yeah.
Magic. Okay, that
And
makes
and
sense,
this
yeah.
was
And Californication's in there too.
I would say Mother's Milk is proto Blood, Sugar, Sex, Magic.
But yeah, and
Just throwing my
Pop
term
dropped
out
a new
any
record
willy-nilly
today.
now.
Sorry, Matt. What else?
I was gonna say, Pop dropped a new record today. That's a fun album. I listened to that before we got going.
Wow, just stealing my record.
No, I was gonna
Just-
segue to you,
just-
Chris. I was gonna
just
say,
stealing
hey,
it, eh?
Chris, what do you think about the record?
Hey, Chris. What do you think about the record?
Well, Matt, I haven't actually listened to it because I didn't get a chance to.
Oh, I'm
Chris,
sorry.
who
I
doesn't
thought you
listen to a
did.
lot
I'm
of new
sorry.
music.
But you're holding it.
No.
You actually have it in your hand.
Which
I
is cool.
bought it today. Well, not today.
Wicked,
So
wicked
we're-
album cover.
So for those in podcast land, this is dropping what in June.
Yeah. This
So we're a
episode-
little this episode.
Oh, this
so we're a
might be
little
May.
behind.
This might be May.
This might
But
be
anyway.
May. Whatever time it is. We're
Time
recording
is
in
just
April.
a construct, man.
Yeah. So I picked it up day of, which is never happens for me. And again, best thing. Again, I was at Looney Tunes talking to the guy, and he picked up the album and he goes, "Man, I love Pop's covers." And he just starts describing it.
Oh,
Starts
this is the
describing-
guy that describes? Yeah, what
Yeah,
did he call
I
it?
love it.
What did
Oh,
he say?
Yeah, so I can't figure out if he only describes Pup albums or like every album. He didn't describe the MC5 album to me, but he was like, so on the Pup album, it's like this face that's like melting with like atomic bombs and stuff, and then this little tiny like Simpsons style, perfect family home from like the early 90s.
So what did he say?
And he's describing, he's like, "Man, I love it." And he's like, "And their last one with like the guys playing like musical chairs with knives, so good." And I was dying. So yeah, it was nice to actually get out on like a Friday and actually go pick up new music.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
that's
cool.
cool.
That's great.
Throwing
That's
it
cool.
back. Old school.
Right? It was quite nice. I also went hunting there for because the Rural Alberta Advantage also dropped an EP today.
I want to listen to that.
Yeah, it's really good. They dropped it last night, so you could listen to the
Nice.
whole album yesterday.
I might
and I
give
was
that a
hoping to
spin
grab
tonight.
it on vinyl, but they didn't. I guess they're saving it for their tour. They'll probably. I know they did that with their last album. They only sold it. They don't even sell it on their website. Literally, you have to go to the show to kind of
Oh,
pick it
that's
up.
cool.
Nice.
Still more
Stoked,
exclusive.
for, I've actually got tickets to Field Trip this year, and they're going to be showing up to that. So
Nice.
I'm
So-
really stoked to see them.
Yeah, you should like if you haven't seen them live. They're one of my.
No,
like,
I've never seen them live. Yeah,
super fun. They kind of line up. They don't do like the classic band one behind the other. They do
Right.
like a line because there's only 3 of them
Yeah.
or 4 depending on how kind of their setup is. but they just line up in a row, and then they kind of like switch instruments and do things and harmonize, and they're fun. So Lozy, I'm at the cottage that week at Field Trip, so if you're there, I might actually get you to pick me up an album.
Yeah, for sure. Let me know.
Yeah, so good album, solid front to back. It's nothing new. It sounds like the Rural Alberta Advantage. So it's good, but I don't know, like it's an EP. So short, sweet, to the point, got me all fired up. That's all I can say.
Nice.
And I'm so stoked to listen to Pup's new album. I've heard most of the songs on it.
I'm going to try and catch them when they're out here on that tour.
You should. I heard they posted on Instagram either today or yesterday. By the sounds of it, they're going to expand some dates.
I hope they come to Brisbane.
Yeah.
Otherwise I'll go to Sydney.
Yeah, because do you know what, Tom? I'm stoked for you because I haven't seen them live yet.
Oh wow!
And the only week they're touring that I can go is I'm at another concert that night. I'm at the Chats.
Okay.
So
that's funny. So I could be seeing in a Canadian punk band before you see them, and you could be seeing an Australian punk band before I see them.
Oh, yeah, that's exciting stuff.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I've actually this isn't new. It's not new, but it's new to me. Listening to some Australian punk, which I shared with Chris, but he already had heard of them. Which my dad recommended, Amel and the Sniffers. They've got
gotta check them out.
Yeah, check them out, man. Their album, it came out last year, Comfort to Me. It's punk rock, it's pub rock, it's in your face, it's high
definitely
energy.
In your face.
Yeah, there's no apologies with these guys, but they've got some cranking riffs. They're quite funny. The singer's kind of got that sort of Courtney Barnett sort of shouting, talking vibe. But they just work, man. You can just bop along to those guys. Really cool.
Nice.
And then Chris, another band I recommended to you. I don't know if you've checked them out yet. They're another Australian band from Melbourne called the Neptune. What are they called? Neptune Power Federation, I think. It's Neptune Power Federation. They've got that really kind of. They look heavier than they are, but they've got that real sort of hard rock, pub rock vibe. Jay from Frenzel Rom is one of the members of the band.
Okay. All right.
And they've got a new album out. That's worth checking out. And then you guys will certainly not enjoy this, but this album came out last year from another Australian band, prog metal band called Lucid Planet. Album's Lucid Planet 2 I've been listening to this week. It is dense. It is really dense. Dan and I talked a bit about prog recently and how you've got to be, it's like jazz, right? You've got to be in the right headspace and you've got to be in the position to sit and absorb it and listen to it and really take it in and concentrate. And this is dense music, but
which is hard to do these days.
Really hard to do. But these guys, they won a bunch of awards last year for this album, Lucid Planet 2. It is in no way accessible. I don't think any of you guys will like it, but maybe check it out. For metalheads, it's like Carnival and Tool, but also tribal and psychedelic. That's the only way I can describe it.
Okay.
Man, they're good musicians, but it's just dense.
Is there is it like math rock? Is there any like? It's Tool. I would describe as like mathy.
It's Tool with psychedelic vibes and tribal elements. That's about the only way I can describe it.
Okay, all right.
It's heavy. It's really heavy. If you like heavy, they write some good riffs, but they're way out there.
Okay, I like Way Out There.
Yeah,
I don't like Tool, but I like Way Out There.
I love Tool. They're one of my favorite bands.
Yeah.
Well, it's funny, for the stuff that I've been listening to, Tom, I know we've been kind of trying to bounce music off of each other. You got me to listen to King Gizzard. I got you to listen to Broken Social Scene.
Yeah. Yes.
I love Broken Social Scene.
I slept on them hard.
Yeah, one of my favorite bands, right? And so I'm so glad that you finally got into them.
All you had to say was Arcade Fire. and I would have jumped right in.
Broken Social Scene and Arcade Fire were always in the same pool because they were like the big Canadian indie rockers in the mid 2000s. But
I heard a lot of Arcade Fire vibes.
Yeah,
really
big bands, a lot of instruments.
I guess so.
Yeah.
It's alt rock, indie rock, right?
But Tom,
I don't know.
Tom finally convinced me to listen to Lateralis, and that's when we had that Lateralis.
Yeah, Tool.
Yeah, so that Tool. Yeah, and so that's when we had that conversation about prog rock and prog metal, and how I was like, you know what? I think you caught me at a great time to listen to this. I had a really enjoyable experience from front to back, but mostly when I was listening to it, I was listening to it with an objective mind, right? Like
you were reviewing it.
It's like I was reviewing it, right? So it was like, I will definitely listen to this again, but it's just not the vibe that I'm currently looking for.
See, I find that hard with this podcast too, because you start to listen to music that way, right? You're like, talking points. And I found myself on this playlist doing that and was like, no, just enjoy the music.
Yeah.
Which is why I was like, I made a couple notes of things, but at the same time, which is why I couldn't remember what song was what. I was like, no, stop.
Yeah.
Stop making those notes. Just like, do you like it? Are you enjoying it? Move on.
Yeah, that's
sort of
good.
thing.
Yeah.
Enjoy it for the music.
Yeah.
Because it was, I said before, I felt like I was underwhelmed or overwhelmed for this episode because this is 1,001 albums that you should listen to before you die. The people who like these bands we're talking about love these bands. So I wanted to like justify my liking of the band for like the super fans. And I was like, no, you can't do that.
And
right?
But also a lot of these picks though, a lot of them we had never listened to. So we had the experience that the book is supposed to give, right?
Yes.
100%.
Yes.
Right.
And that's
like, shit, music we've never heard of that ended up being, absolutely. Now these are instant classics.
Yeah.
Right. Like, and I think that was important, but it took me to get over that hump, right? To be like, no, I'm not reviewing this album. I'm enjoying this album.
Mm-hmm.
Right. I'm reviewing the album I already know because I've listened to it 100 times. Right. Yeah. So, and Dan, you're right. Like you can't enjoy music when you're thinking about it that way.
I just had a thought, that I was thinking about the perfect way to listen to that MC5 album and like what I want to do when I'm listening to it. You know those like silent discos where everyone wears headphones and you go.
One,
I feel like you need to go to like a gig and listen to that album, but whether it's with the headphones or whether it's just that being played, like I feel like you need to listen to that live with a group of people who are just embracing the chaos.
Yeah.
You don't, not analyzing it, just reacting to it.
Yeah.
And I think that's why I enjoyed the Oasis album so much this time was because I was out and about in the real world and I didn't have time to I was doing other things. So I didn't have time to analyze it. I just had time to enjoy it. And then it just kept going. And I was like, yeah. And I think that's really important for new music because I find I'm over analyzing everything. Right. Especially because we did that year in review. So then I started even this year going into
list. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. And I was over analyzing. I was like, no, you're ruining the point of music. The point of music is just to enjoy it or not enjoy it. If I don't enjoy it, I don't have to justify it to anyone. Mm-hmm. Right. Maybe it's not the time. Like Dan said, he was like, it wasn't the right time, wasn't the right place. And I think that's really important. Something I've learned from this podcast was who cares? Sometimes you like them. Sometimes Matt's picks suck, There we go.
Not to go off on too much of a tangent though. I mean, the music that I've been listening to a lot recently, and this kind of was a bridge from when we did the year in review. I ended the year with that Snail Mail album, which I was on the fence as to which my favorite album was. And I may, depending on the day, I may go back and even change my pick to the War on Drugs record because I think that Snail Mail album is actually perfect. But the Spotify algorithm, because I was listening to so much Phoebe Bridgers and Snail Mail, has just been feeding me female-centric, alternative indie. And so just to name a few that I've really loved it in the last month. Soccer Mommy, Japanese Breakfast, Faye Webster.
That Japanese
Definitely-
breakfast album is
definitely up
really
there.
good.
Yo, that was on everyone's
Album is
list.
unreal.
I'll have to check that out.
It was on everyone's
Yeah.
list for the year in review, wasn't it? It was on mine.
Japanese Breakfast Jubilee, big album.
That was my buddy Dylan was pushing that album on me, and I had a quick listen. I didn't. Again, it was one of those things because I was like, I didn't enjoy it because I was too critical. But I think I have to go back and listen because there was a couple songs that caught me.
You know what? I think Dylan picked Valentine by Snail Mail as his #1 record of the year.
Yeah, I think he did.
Oh, do you know what? That makes sense. Like I didn't actually. Yeah, he drops that.
He always
album of the year.
always does that list at the end of it, which is I think is great.
Yeah,
I think
well,
in the past he used to do like 100, top 100, which
100.
is
Yeah.
nuts.
Well, he works for Universal, so he gets
Does he?
his. Wait,
Sick.
Sony?
think it's
I'm gonna get yelled at.
It's
But
so
Yeah, that's the new music I've been listening to. You know, check out those artists. I think they need more love than they typically get. So
Yeah.
Awesome.
All right.
You guys got anything
Good
else?
stuff. Man, if you're in Ottawa this year, you gotta check out Blues Fest. Has anyone seen the lineup for Blues Fest?
It's unreal.
well, if you're
Alanis
in Ottawa
Mor-
at a very specific time, go check out Blues Fest.
Yo, Alanis Morissette, Alexis on Fire,
Yeah.
Rage Against the Machine. Like, we're talking like
Franti?
killer bands here.
Yeah.
Garbage, I do believe, is even there.
Garbage are back.
Nice.
The 90s
Yeah.
are back.
The 90s
Yeah.
are back. Who's someone new here? Oh, Cleopatra. If you've never heard of Cleopatra, check them out. They're a really cool kind of Canadian duo band. Crash Test Dummies.
The 90s are back.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
Man, Grandson, Jack Johnson. Like, we're talking like banger after bang. Luke Bryan. Just to name a few. And
I don't know any of these guys you're talking about, Chris.
Really?
Keep
Oh, man.
listing.
Sarah McLachlan.
Okay. Well,
Oh, okay. Sum 41.
Some 41,
Okay.
cool.
The
Not,
Beaches.
not really blues at all, but
Man, I really want to
None
see
of these
the
are
Beaches.
blues. The
Right,
New
no, Blues Fest is
Pornographers,
not.
one
Blues
of
Fest
those
is not a blues.
that famous
fest.
blues band Rage Against the Machine.
Machine. Hey, the Tea Party. 3
They've
Days
had-
Grace.
Tea
Blues
Party
Fest
are
has
back,
had
hey?
Snoop Dogg.
Yeah. Wide Mouth Mason.
Oh wow.
Yeah, let's get this.
Yeah, that's interesting because Blues Fest in Australia is still really heavily blues focused.
It's not Blues
No,
Fest.
this isn't the National.
Ooh.
TLC. Dan, there you go.
TLC's coming to London this summer too.
Yeah. Dan,
with Aqua.
Aqua. Wow.
Whoa.
All right. Wow. Yo, Matt's going to that for sure.
All right.
Oh yeah.
I'm gonna
Run the
I'm gonna
Jewel?
call this.
Oh, I want to see Run the Jewel
Wrap
too.
it up, Chris.
No, I'm just.
Chris
I'm
is just
naming-
reading the entire lineup
I'm just reading
of
this set
Blues
list.
Fest.
Yeah, there you go.
If you would
I
like to
gotta
hear
ask-
the yeah,
Go to
man.
the website. Hey, Jeb, but talk about a banger of a festival there. Holy crap.
This episode
You
is
guys-
brought to you by Blues Fest.
You guys
Yeah,
got to
free
keep me in
tickets,
your
please.
thoughts tomorrow. I'm going to a record swap meet. It might be a dangerous day.
Yo, we want video.
Oh,
We
Yeah,
want
it gets
pictures.
content.
Yeah,
we
Chris,
want
if I
real-
pick, I'm sure I'll be picking up something. So
Matt, bring a fixed amount of money, okay?
that's exactly what I'm doing. Because
Yeah,
if I
you've got a
don't
new
do
baby
that, it's
coming.
going to be lethal.
Like $5,000 tops.
yeah.
Cap it. You got to
Charlotte's
set a
definitely
cap.
not.
Hard ceiling.
Charlotte's not going to university, that's for sure, or college, or even.
Oh
the
no, she
trades.
will be. She'll
No,
be all
that's
right.
why he bought all the doubles. That's why he bought all the
Yes.
doubles.
Exactly.
That's,
Saw that. Oh, gotcha.
All right, I'm calling
that's the
this.
investment.
Yeah.
All right, that's it for another episode. Be sure to check out the playlist. I will add it to the link tree on our Instagram account at Create Expectations Pod. Google us on the internet. Find where you want to hit us up. Send us an email. Send us a message on Instagram. Check us out on the web. Like and subscribe. And until next time, keep digging and spinning.
But the funny thing is that, you know, because I listen to so much fucking cat feeder, cut that shit out. I can't believe it.
No,
fucking
leave
cut
it
me
in.
off on that fucking. No, don't put that in the podcast.
Leave it in. Leave this in.
I
Matt,
can't fucking stand that thing.
you know what to do.
Please don't put all that shit
Put
into
it
the
in.
podcast. No.
Yo,
don't.
and you, when the credits are going, just have Dan ranting. Just you clip this.
Actually, just clip the fucking cat feeder and put it at the end.
The Groovy Guys are Tom Kennedy, Dan Lozier, Chris Palumbo, and Matt Carvalho. With your host, Tom Kennedy. Music by Dan Lozier. Post-production by Matt. And album art by Chris.